Hello, my name is John Didi, professor of political science at the community colleges of Baltimore County and local media political analyst. Welcome to the Maryland State Politics and Government podcast on Substack. Today, I am honored to have as my guest delegate Nick Kipke from the Pasadena area. Welcome aboard.
Thanks for having me, John. Good to be with you.
My first question is, what are your goals for this legislative session?
The thing that I have the most concern for is the unaffordability of the utilities in Maryland. Daily, certainly multiple times a week, I'm contacted by people who are very concerned about how they're going to pay their electricity bill. And so I feel like if there's anything that has to happen, that's the thing that needs to be resolved or improved or fixed. And there's a lot of politics around energy and climate, and there's people on both sides of that issue that are not going to agree on a whole lot. But at the end of the day, there are many thousands of people that need to be able to pay the bill, to turn the lights on and off, to have safe environments in the winter, safe environments in the thick of the summer. Right now, Maryland is it's the most costly state in the nation for utilities. So that's my number one priority. I've got grave concern that that issue is not going to be addressed in a meaningful way by this legislature or this governor, frankly. We need real leadership on the subject. I'm going to keep banging the drum and pushing for reforms.
It is an important thing, as you cited. People are concerned about it. I'm concerned about it. I've looked at my bill recently. I was away for 10 days and saw the bill, and I said, it got higher, and I was gone for 10 days. And that was very frustrating. What type of ideas do you think that the state should propose to kind of deal with this energy problem we're having? New, old ideas? What's your thoughts?
So right now, I feel like politely the extremists on the environmental side are in charge of Maryland's energy policy. And it's my opinion that the grown-ups need to sit around a table and negotiate a path forward. We've had 7 power plants close, major producers of energy, all coal-fired power plants. There's one that's continuing to run because the federal government says you have to run. You are not allowed to shut down because our grid will become shaky. We'll have power outages. So it continues to run. Meanwhile, Maryland has not produced any new electricity with all of those power plants shutting down. So we're importing all of this power from other places in the country. In the region, and the further it travels, the more expensive it is. And all of the people in the region, all the states in the region are competing for the same power. And, because we're not producing enough, we're getting hosed. Marylanders are getting hosed on their electricity bills. But, I understand people that are very concerned about global warming, find coal, even clean coal, with the scrubber system. The one power plant near me, it was nearly $1 billion of environmental upgrades to collect the pollutants before it reaches the air. So when I was growing up breathing, toxic air basically from power plants that were coal-fired, that's, obviously we don't want that. Nobody wants that, but there is technology to produce clean energy from coal. But that's not acceptable to a lot of people on the left. Fine. We have to get our arms wrapped around what is acceptable. And for me, going all in on solar and wind isn't acceptable because it's too expensive. We can't afford it. I mean, if you're rich, you don't care, but the average person cannot afford that type of energy. So we have to figure out where's the middle ground until the world figures out a better way, some new technology, fusion, or whatever the next best thing is. And right now, we need a short-term and a long-term plan. Short-term, if coal's not going to be allowed as a Band-Aid to the future, we need to be turning on more natural gas powered power plants. The one power plant that I mentioned that's being forced to run is adjacent to the East Coast natural gas line. So there's some real synergy there based on just its location. But long term, for in my opinion, is long term, the nation really should go all in on safe, reliable, affordable nuclear energy. It's the only power source that I'm aware of that exists today that can produce the kind of power Americans are demanding at an affordable rate.
I think the one thing that this is really doing the last few years is it's harming the environmental movement because people feel that they've gone too far to the left. And I can remember about 20 years ago, some people in the movement talked about maybe nuclear would be okay. And I think that what has happened is you have a situation where wind turbines in the ocean, to me, it's unpractical because it's too costly to do. People just don't want it. But out in the middle of the Western Maryland, it's not as big a problem. How can we kind of bridge some of these divides?
Well, like I've said previously, we need the grown-ups to sit around the table. Even if you go all in on wind or solar, where you wipe out all the Eastern Shore's farmland and put solar everywhere, it's a pittance. It's a pittance of what we need. It's not enough, and it doesn't address the base load issues. You know, coal, natural gas, to a lesser extent, coal and nuclear, they produce the big punch that you need to keep everything flowing in terms of electricity reliability. Uh, Having too much solar and too much wind does not produce the base load that you need, and as a result, it still has to be supplanted with other things, whether it's coal in West Virginia or nuclear in Pennsylvania. So we need to be grown-ups about it. The politicians who are running this right now are too obsessed with the whether the environmental groups. We people are suffering. I've been elected nearly 20 years, and I've never had the number of people in the last year, proud people calling me desperate for help, either to get their power turned back on or, facing power being turned off. So it's four, five, six, seven, $800 power bills every month. I mean, for many people, it's crushing. And so we need the adults in the room to shred off the politics and to acknowledge the elephant in the room is that Maryland's embrace of the environmental agenda is not connected to reality. And maybe one day we can get there to where they want to go, but right now it's crushing people.
One of the big issues that is crushing counties is the blueprint. I've talked to county officials, and they're terrified of it long term because it comes down to, where do we get the money for this? The ideas and the objectives are great, but the financial obligation and albatross is their concern. What would you do regarding the blueprint if you had kind of a little bit of control to be able to say, we need to do this, we need to do that?
Well, an easy thing to do, in my opinion, is to do what Martin O'Malley did with the previous education funding plan, and that is to slow the implementation of it. Just slow down the increases, to go all in on the kind of spending that's required by the blueprint will cause Maryland's budget to continue to grow at a pace that outstrips revenue. Maryland is already among one of the most expensive places in America to live. We are at the top of the list for the cost of overall taxes and fees. And Marylanders are lifelong Marylanders. I'm a lifelong Marylander, and I've got family here, and I've known people for many years. They're moving. People are getting out of Maryland like crazy. We're the number one U-Haul state. U-Haul says that people are renting U-Hauls to move to other states. Maryland is ranked number one. And it's really sad because there's a lot of good here. We've got a great state. There's a lot of cultural things. There's a lot, there's a lot of good in Maryland. And people are saying, I love it. I love you, Maryland, but I'm out. And this blueprint spending plan will just pour gasoline on that. You can't have billions of dollars of new taxes passed in Maryland every year on top of the fact that Maryland is already among the highest tax states in the country. So one solution, which I think is an easy solution, Martin O'Malley did it when he was governor, is you just say, hey, we can't afford doing it all at once. We're going to slow down the phase in. Education funding has gone up every year, every single year. It's just to the extent that it's affordable. And I'll mention one other thing. Public school enrollment is down. People are choosing other options, whether it's homeschooling, private schools, co-ops. And I think it's because, parents aren't satisfied with what they're seeing in public school. So, the answer to your question is, from a political perspective, I understand it's hard for the governor to say no to the blueprint and to the interest groups associated with it, but surely we can't afford it, and at a minimum, he should slow down the increases in spending.
Besides the blueprint, what would you cut from the budget? If you had like kind of a red pen and you could tell the governor, here's three things that just got to go, what would you cut? Would you look at Medicaid? What kind of ideas out there would you look at for kind of making changes?
If we level funded education with a declining enrollment, so fewer kids are going to public schools, they're choosing other options. Maryland's population, if it weren't up until recent years, has been flat or stagnant, and because people are leaving Maryland. I think that the simple budget solution is, if Nick Kipke were in charge, would be to level fund education. He doesn't even have to do that. He can just slow the increases to education. If I had a magic wand, I think one of the most important things that we could do is implement a full voucher system in the state of Maryland for public schools students, or for students in Maryland to choose what schools that they go to. That's radical in a state like Maryland. It's been implemented around the country, but I believe in having competition for educational dollars is a real market-based approach to improving educational outcomes. So, that's what I would do.
Next question is, you are running for the Senate and gonna go for the promotion. I think you'll get it personally. Why did you decide to do that? Why do you want to kind of go up to the next level?
So this, as I said earlier, this is I'm in my 20th, approaching my 20th year. And, I had a lot of soul searching to do about whether or not to run again. I really enjoy helping people in the district. People say that kind of thing, but I really mean it. I like that more than I like sort of the politics of being elected. Letting go of elected office for that reason, I was sort of struggling with it. But our state senator told me that he was retiring before he announced it to the public. And so I thought, well, the Senate is a little bit more sane politically, in my opinion. They're methodical, they're a little less impetuous. And I thought, I think I might like it over there a little better than I like the House these days. And I have a lot of relationships. A lot of the people that I sort of grew up with in politics, have Democrats and Republicans, have graduated to the Senate. And so I'm excited about a new experience, a different environment, and being able to continue to help people in the district.
My next question deals with a controversy that's gone on, legislation related to ICE. And there's a lot of mixed ideas. First, after what happened in Minnesota, a lot of people have gotten a little reactionary, and maybe with good reason. There's also concern that the various parties that are involved with ICE, the mask wearing thing. And I talked to Delegate Schmidt today, and I basically told him, if 9 o'clock at night someone knocks on my door and they're wearing a mask and they're saying that they're a cop, I'm terrified at that moment. Mm-hmm. What should be done related to this type of thing? Should they be required to have masks? But what can be done to kind of reassure the public, but also kind of just tone everything down?
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like you about the subject. I think one of the most important things that needs to happen is all of the officers should be wearing everywhere, not just in Minneapolis. They should be wearing body-worn cameras. I think that protects the public and it protects the officers. I have a relative who I watched go through a boot camp of sorts to become a law enforcement officer in Maryland. I mean, the training involved is 6 months. It was intense. I'm so proud of her. And I don't think, because of the way ICE hired up for what's going on, that kind of training took place. And So I am glad to see that there's a new approach. I did not like to see the horrible, ugly images that I saw on the TV, and I'm glad to see that there's a new approach. And nationwide, I do think body worn cameras would be important. I have mixed feeling. I feel like you. I don't like seeing the masks. It reminds me of something out of a sci-fi movie, or it's not good. I don't like it. I don't want it. The only thing that I have reservations about is these officers, the good law enforcement officers who are trying their best to serve the public. They're being doxxed. Their families are under assault. There's examples of how they have done nothing wrong except for put on an ICE uniform, and they're at risk. Their personal safety is at risk. So I have mixed feelings about it. I did see that a federal judge struck down a California law today that would have prohibited ICE from wearing masks in that state. And so, it's a long answer, I guess, to the question. I have mixed feelings about banning it outright when you have law enforcement being targeted the way that they're being targeted, and largely along political lines. I mean, I don't like seeing how ICE was approaching immigration enforcement in Minnesota when all those ugly images were taking place. On the other hand, you had politicians in Minnesota grandstanding, basically encouraging citizens there to take on ICE, have conflict with ICE. So I think there's two sides to it as well. That side needs to be addressed. You can't inflame your voters to go attack ICE and interrupt law enforcement, legal law enforcement.
Don't poke the bear, I often say. And sometimes I think that when you do that, you're not leading the front of the parade. You're encouraging other people.
Yeah.
My final question is, why did you get involved in politics many years ago? Was there political leaders of the past inspire you, or who were those people that got you really interested in saying, I'd like to kind of do this for a part-time career?
Well, when I was in my mid 20s, it's hard to believe I'm 47 now. I had volunteered for our local councilman in the area named Ron Dillon, and I thought he did a great job on the council. And,
yes, I agree.
Yeah. So I volunteered. I got to know him, and I got to witness, what he did. And because of my involvement in that campaign, I had some people encourage me to run, but I was very new in my career, my private career, and very young, and I didn't think it was the right time for me. But they pushed and pushed and pushed, and I have a natural, I don't know, I really like helping people. When somebody calls me and I'm able to get their pothole fixed, it makes me happy, and little issues like that, but also bigger issues where I can have a meaningful impact in helping people with whether it's a health insurance dispute or getting their power turned back on at their house or whatever it may be. So I think I have that personality, and with the encouragement that came along from some others. He's now passed, but former Senator Mike Wagner, who was a Democrat, a conservative Democrat, he called me out of the blue and asked me to meet with him and encouraged me to run. And I thought to myself, well, this successful guy who, had a colorful or colorful business career, a successful business career, and also a respected run in the state Senate, thinks I'm up to it. Maybe I am. And so I ran and won. And, like I said, I sometimes think about the way things were in Annapolis when I first got here, maybe the first 10 years. The Democrats and Republicans were a lot closer politically on major issues, and they certainly weren't at each other's throats the way that they are, at least the public persona of it is today, largely driven, I think, by social media. But I've tried to, be the kind of guy that, as a legislator, that looks for common grounds, stands for my beliefs and the beliefs of the people in my district, but also try to work things out so that we can advance good public policy where possible.
Thank you very much for your time, and good luck on the campaign trail and the rest of the Maryland General Assembly session.
Thanks, John. Nice being with you.